My name is Rick Firestone.
My name is Ben Bugale.
And you're listening to pixelprojectradio, a video game podcast series where we go through and play, analyze, theorize, and generally live with various games. And each week it's a little something different. And this week, me and Ben, we're just a couple of furries in go-karts because we're talking about what game, Ben?
We are talking about the bane of my childhood, Diddy Kong Racing.
Why do you say that?
So I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I'll just throw this right now. This is a game that I started when I was 5 or 6. Like, I got it in 97, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't beat it until I was 20, 21, 22. It took a very long time. It is appropriately challenging. And holy shnikes, is it frustrating.
Yeah, and when it's compared to, the other big Nintendo 64 racing game, Mario Kart 64, there are a lot of differences, to be sure, and I think difficulty is one of them. Did you play Mario Kart 64 for this episode? Like, did you go back and sort of do it side by side?
I did do a little bit, at least, with the Switch doing the recent release of the virtual console for N64 games. I'd been playing some of the original Mario Kart 64. Did you?
Yeah. I did an emulator because I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad apple. I'm a bad apple. I'm poisoning the rest of the bushel.
I'm gonna bite that apple.
I don't play by the rules. I'm a nasty guy.
Well, that's a nasty guy. Rick, you're a nasty guy. You're just a nasty guy.
You ask anybody on the street, anybody, they'll tell you, this is Johnny's town. No, yeah, I did. Right. I did, and it's such a shame that Sam Hyde became such a right-wing fucker. Anyway, yeah, I played through a little bit of Mario Kart 64. Truthfully, I didn't play Diddy Kong Racing or Mario Kart on the N64 because I didn't have that as a kid.
P.S. boy.
my best friend that did have it, we played Mario Party and Pokemon Stadium were the two big ones. So nostalgia is not an issue for me in this one. But I will say, actually, let's save all that jazz. Do you want to dive right into our little 1-sentence, 2-sentence boys?
I think so. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first.
Yeah.
When one thinks of N64's racing titles, two titans reign supreme. And though Mario Kart 64 does have tighter controls, Diddy Kong Racing wears the crown. It's rife with creativity, replayability, and charm, and I can safely say I hope it gets a reboot in the future, even though it's probably not going to. This, for me, is like between a 6.5 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10. Not because it's not good, because that's still better than most, but it's just, I'm not big on racing games, but as far as racing games go, this is generally fun.
Personal biases about the kind of games we like to play, they matter when we review games. And I appreciate the fact that you have mentioned that for you, that's just not like a thing. It's sort of like, if my good lady wife was talking about a first-person shooter, it would probably score a 5, even if it was GoldenEye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but objectively, I do think this is a better game than Mario Kart 64.
I agree, and I'm sure that will come up a number of times. My review is as follows. Diddy Kong Racing stands on the shoulders of the racers that came before, and is postured deservedly among the best racing games of its era. Varied racing vehicles, a standout original soundtrack, imaginative courses, and a legitimate challenge make this game a modest giant in the canon of N64 classics. 9 out of 10 for me, and that is because, Rick, exactly what you're talking about with Mario Kart, the second mouse gets the cheese, as they say. The improvements. There are a lot of improvements in Diddy Kong.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. The second monkey gets the banana would have been the obvious pull there, but, maybe we can edit that in post.
Do they have monkey traps?
I think we're getting into poaching territory.
I think so. Oh, no.
Oh, God, are there any dentists in the house? Yeah, so let's just say right up front. So we both think this is a better kart racer than Mario Kart 64. So I'm curious to hear why. I think you have more experience in these games than I do. So why do you personally feel this is a better kart racer?
Let me start by saying it's not that I don't love Mario Kart 64. And the most important thing I can say about Mario Kart 64 is that Mario Kart 64 is the reason this game exists. So I'm not saying that Mario Kart 64 is a low-level game or is weak or anything else. However, what Rare does with what came before as a racer and just says, no, hold on, how many boundaries can we push? I mean, it's how to describe it. It's I don't want to use any gatekeeping like terminology, so I'm gonna rewind here for a second. They basically just break and rewrite rules. I mean, there's this variety of vehicles which doesn't objectively make the game better. It makes it more interesting, I think, which puts it in a tier above. For the amount of music that happens in this game. I mean, Victoria and I were playing through Mario Kart 64 the other day on the virtual console and playing multiplayer. There's no music. There's nothing. In Mario Kart, one of my things I love about it is the fact that there are all of these leveling mechanisms. Like, you could be in 8th place and win in the last lap. Not in Diddy Kong. You have earned your place, and it is so full of strategy. I mean, it's a galaxy by comparison.
That's one of the things that stood out to me about Diddy Kong versus Mario Kart is Mario Kart has more RNG to it. That's random number generation for those not in the know. Whereas Diddy Kong, it's purely skill based. Like if you are better at the game, you're going to win. And that's not to say that I don't like Mario Kart because of that. It's Mario Kart to me is kind of like the game that you whip out at parties or like if you're drinking with friends. Whereas Diddy Kong, it's like if you're not good at the game, you're not going to win.
Won't have fun either, probably.
And I think while we're just comparing the two, one of the interesting things to me is that while Diddy Kong is more based in skill and you just have to know how to play it and know the maps, it doesn't control nearly as well. Would you agree with that statement?
See, for me, not entirely, but then again, I grew up playing this game, like literally from the time I was 5 years old and even learned how like what a thumb was, you know what I'm saying? Like I was suddenly like using those thumbs to like navigate. So for me, it actually handles better than Mario Kart. I'm used to that.
Did you learn how to use your thumbs from Diddy Kong Racing?
Only from Diddy Kong. Forget literally everything else. Nope, not holding a bottle. None of that kind of stuff, not grabbing anything. Someone handed me an N64 controller and just by the grace of God, my thumbs started moving in the exact right direction at the exact right time.
Take that, public school system.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I did some digging online. I didn't ask any other real people, but I did some digging online, and I think generally people do feel that Mario Kart handles a little better. Being that you grew up with Diddy Kong, maybe that's having an impact on that. But that's the one thing. So it's like when I'm comparing all the things that I like more in Diddy Kong to Mario Kart, it's like I'm putting stones on a seesaw. And then for Mario Kart, it controls better, and that stone is much bigger than anything Diddy Kong has. But it's still not enough to make me say that I like the game more. I still think Diddy Kong's a better game.
And, you know, bringing up handling, the thing about Diddy Kong, it depends on, to some extent, what racer you're picking and who you're going with. But, like, there's a whole... I mean, it really is a skill set of learning. You haven't played Star Wars Rogue Squadron for N64, correct?
Not enough to comment on it. That's
okay. It sort of takes that level of adaptability of, like... Because Mario Kart, you have really consistent, really good handling. It just is. I had problems with it, but I don't know if that's Mario Kart effect or what. But like in Star Wars Rogue Squadron, right? The snow speeder is limited. So I look like a buffoon trying to pilot a snow speeder. Meanwhile, an X-Wing is like the most eloquent, like, Tony Hawk kind of thing. Like its stats are all around. Same thing with Diddy Kong. It's very much who you're playing as and what vehicle you're piloting, I think make the difference.
Yeah, speaking of vehicles, in Diddy Kong Racing, there are 3 of them. You get a standard cart, an airplane, and like a little hover disc thing. Is there what's the official name for that?
Let me find its Christian name for you here, pal. I think it calls itself a hovercraft, but I don't know why I'm struggling to find what its real name is right now.
Yeah, it's a hovercraft. You're right.
All right.
So those are the 3 vehicles that you can choose from, and that in and of itself gives it some variety that Mario Kart doesn't have. And there are some other things that we'll talk about as we move on. But for me, the hovercraft was my arch nemesis. I never enjoyed playing on the hovercraft.
Yeah, that's about right. It's pretty bad.
The car and the planes control as you'd expect. In this game, you use the gas or the throttle to go. You have a handbrake, which can allow you to drift if you're in the car. The plane can kind of do its own version of that with like a sharper turn. Mm-hmm. And then you have your action button, which either lets you honk your horn or use an item. And that's pretty much all there is to the controls. Am I missing anything?
No, accelerate, brake, exactly that, like the drift handbrake. You can go in reverse, which doesn't do much good.
Let's sing the praises of this game. You can go in reverse.
You can go backwards. One thing that's interesting, Rick, you mentioned items, about using your action button to fire items. Something that makes this game stand out from other racers of its era is the fact that there are different colored balloons. So we don't just have like the random question mark boxes. You know exactly what you're getting when you run into the different balloons. Now, the red balloons are projectiles. The blue balloons are boosts. The greens are like oil slicks. The yellows are shields. And there are rainbow balloons that have a magnetic quality to them. If you run into 1 red, you get 1 rocket. If you run into 2 red balloons in a row, it turns into a homing missile, and 3, which is the maximum for any of the similarly colored balloons. If you run into 3 red balloons, you get 10 single missiles. I love this. I don't know. How did you feel about this as I don't know what the word is, as a thing?
Yeah, as like a mechanic or as like a verb of the game. I liked it a lot. So that's another way that it's so different from Mario Kart is in Mario Kart, if you are in first place and you run into a box, you are more than likely going to get a banana or a coin, versus if you're in like last place, you're more likely to get a blue shell or something that's like really powerful. In this, what you see is what you get. The red balloon is always going to be the missiles. The blue is always the speed boost, no matter what. So that puts a sort of strategy to the game. Like it takes out that RNG element. So if you're in first place and you have 10 one-shot missiles, you keep those. And it's important to note, too, that if you've got a missile, one homing missile, 1 10-shot missile, whatever, if you run into another color, it gets replaced. So that's something to watch out for, too. So you can't just be careless and collect all the balloons to keep other people away.
That's correct. Say you get 2 blue balloons and you've got like your second largest boost and you're trying to get that 3rd balloon and you accidentally run into a yellow. You restart with the shortest lasting shield. I like that. And this is Rare, though. Rare throws no bones to anyone in the games that they create. And that's what I love about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, too, just going on off of the theme of lack of RNG and more skill-based, the levels. So let's just touch on the level designs for a sec. Let's camp there.
I've got my tent. I'm scared.
Yep. It's a Thursday evening and Ben is pitching a tent.
I'm pitching a tent at Ram Ranch.
So typical. Oh, are you really going to bring that onto the podcast?
That's the extent of it. That's all I'm going to say. If you know, you know. And if you don't, I'm sorry that you Googled it.
Oh, if you're listening, you're probably an adult. Do what you please. We're not endorsing anything. Anyway, let's get back to let's get back to the level. So there are more levels, more tracks in Diddy Kong Racing than there are in Mario 64. Mario 64 tends to do it with cups, like they'll do different cups, and the racing will get a little more challenging. Diddy Kong Racing just has multiple levels. Some levels you can only do... Well, no, hold on, that's not true. Each level is going to have a cart, so you can't race a cart on a hovercraft level, right?
Right, it depends. There are some levels where you can use all 3 vehicles. There are some where you can only use 2. The water levels, you can almost never use a cart.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be like throwing a monkey in a go-kart into the river. That's exactly what it would be like, because that's what you're doing.
That's what the game is.
I believe that's a parable. But
Jesus taught it, yes.
But so each of these levels, they're quite short. You can finish every race, with the exception of boss races, is going to be 3 laps. And you can finish a race in under 2 minutes. It's generally like 1 to 2 minutes. So the level designs are short, but how do you, like, if you had to compare them to Mario Kart, how would you? Which do you like more? Which do you find to be more creative?
Between Mario Kart and Diddy Kong?
Yeah.
Diddy Kong by a landslide, in my humble opinion.
And another thing that makes the levels in Diddy Kong stand out is there are more, I don't remember their Christian name, as you would say, but the speed boosters. There are more of those strategically laid out, and they become more integral than they do in Mario Kart, where in Mario Kart, if you miss them, it's usually not a big deal. You can either drift or use your items to get ahead. In Diddy Kong, if you don't hit those, you're at a real disadvantage, especially in the boss battles. They essentially become required in the boss battles.
They are absolutely necessary. So I'm guessing this is a rare thing because England, they're called zippers in this game. How about that?
I guess it's because of how they look, maybe? Because they kind of have a zipper design?
I suppose, but no, Rick, you're spot on. I mean, it's... In Mario Kart, they're kind of there, and it's like, if you miss it, oh, well, I'll probably pick up an item if I'm in 3rd place that will catapult me to 1st. Not the case here. If you miss that zipper, Rick, I can't tell you how many times, and I don't know if this was true for you, how many times I would miss a zipper, I guess, and just say, well, I've got to restart the race because there's no way I'm going to catch up now.
It never happened to me in the standard races. It happened to me a lot in the boss battles. There is a real difference of difficulty there. There's a real valley in between the two. The races, I don't think I ever lost a race because except maybe the hovercraft ones, but they're fairly easy. The boss battles, we'll talk about them in a bit, but not so. It is tough.
They're like difficult the way I want them to be. Like they're actually, we'll get to that. If I might continue on level design.
Yeah, we kind of got off the trail there.
It's all good. There are also bananas because Diddy Kong is a monkey boy, and you have to collect the bananas. If you collect, well, you don't have to, I guess, technically, but by collecting the bananas, you can increase the top speed of your vehicle. After you reach that top speed, they don't really do anything else. If you get hit, apparently you can lose some bananas. I don't know. I don't generally collect bananas. I just go bananas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They function just like the coins in Mario Kart. So it's the same thing, really.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the levels, so the way this game is set up, there are 5 different lands. There is Dino Domain, Snowflake Mountain, Sherbet Island, Dragon Forest, and Future Funland.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these is going to have a boss. You basically have to go through each one sequentially, although you can kind of do them out of order depending on how many balloons you have. You can't just pick whichever one you want willy-nilly because there are requirements of balloons. Balloons are one of the required collectibles in the game. So you start off with 1. You can find a couple in the overworld, which, I guess we didn't mention there's an overworld in this game.
Truly there is, yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, that came back with Crash Team Racing, which was my first kart game growing up. So I really like the overworld. I think it's neat. It also, well, we'll get to that. But in the overworld, you drive into whichever race track you want, and you have to make sure that you have the required number of balloons. When you win a track, you get a balloon, so that's how you boost your count, as well as finding a couple scattered across the overworld. And each one has a boss. We'll talk about the bosses probably after this, but did you have a favorite world in general?
So as a small bean boy that I was, I love the snow levels in literally any game, so Snowflake Mountain for me. How about you?
I'm torn between Future Funland and Snowflake Mountain, but I think those are nice. Dino Domain is also really quite good for being like the first one you encounter.
Oh, it is absolute perfection. Look at those levels and look how you can, in 3 of them, use every single vehicle. I mean, it's its own tutorial. It's perfect. Come on.
Yeah. Each of these worlds has 4 different tracks on it. You can race each track, I believe, twice. One for the standard race, one for the coin race. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and like we said, each one is generally under 2 minutes, so they go by really quick. And some of them do blend together, in my opinion. But we'll talk about the levels a little more. Ben, you mentioned tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something about this game that I was thinking about that doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So this game, when you bought it originally, it came with a game manual, which those aren't really a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of the game manual was the story.
Yes.
We can maybe put a pin in that for a second. You also had the controls in there. When you boot up the game, you're greeted with the level select screen, the character select screen, which cracks me up so much. Ben, I cannot stop laughing at it.
Tell me more.
Because the music is so, I'm going to cut the music in here. It's so upbeat and happy and like quick. And all of the characters are staring directly into the camera, moving their hands back and forth.
And holding the sign.
And there's just like wicked fast banjo that just comes out of nowhere. It's so funny to me.
Depending on which character you pick, that's what determines the instrumentation.
Oh, is that so?
Yep.
See, I generally just stayed as Conker, and I listened to the tracks on YouTube.
Yeah, Conker's got like really fast mallet percussion. Banjo though has just. Did you know? Fun fact: this is the first game Banjo appeared in.
Same with Conker.
Yes.
Yeah, those characters were both I think they were both being developed at the time, but this is their first official appearance. And then Rare was like, okay, Conker, no more after the shenanigans you pulled in your game.
Nasty guy.
But anyway, so after you choose your character, you are dropped into the overworld, and that's that. You just go. There's no in-game storytelling. There's no in-game tutorial. You're just left to figure it out. And I think that's kind of neat. It brought me back to a time when this was very common back in the day to do this kind of thing.
It's sort of like, so my cousin Josh, we would watch the Star Wars movies, and he always read the novels, so he could always explain everything that was canon happening in episode 1. He was like, yes, of course, Darth Maul. Meanwhile, I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't read the manual. I was a kid trying to play a game.
I think back then it was more expected to have more in the box in terms of the manual. The manual would have all of the background, character profiles, how to play, tips and tricks, sometimes even cheat codes and things like that. And then they progressed to sort of just, the cover art and that's it. And then now with Steam, you don't really get that. With some games, you might get a download, maybe, but generally you don't. And, I kind of miss it. There's so much about this game that is so 90s, between just dropping you right in and having you figure it out. And to circle back just briefly on what I just mentioned, cheat codes. This game has tons of cheat codes in the form of magic codes.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. Actually, no. I would love it if you were to take on the magic codes, as it were. Because I didn't use them very much, to be honest. Did you use them?
I used one, but the thing that I like about these magic codes is, and this is like peak 90s gaming, you have a screen where you can input these codes and they're words, or like two words that are compound together. And some of them do in-game stuff, like they take all the bananas away, they make all the balloons red or blue or whatever. But most of them, or at least a lot of them, are just silly. Like the one, if you type in Arnold, it makes everybody really big. If you type in teeny weeny, it makes everybody really tiny. Just goofy shit like that. And that's like, I used to get Tips and Tricks magazine as a kid, and it would just have tons of these on the inside. Like some of them, yes, they alter how the game works, but like a lot of them are just silly visual gags. And it's just, you don't even have cheat codes anymore.
No, Rick, they did this in GoldenEye, they did this in Tony Hawk, they did this in Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Like, all of these absurd things that the cheat codes would do. I mean, Arnold, for example, there was one, I think it was like DK mode, made everybody in GoldenEye like have gigantic heads and really torn upper bodies and like really tiny legs, at least as much as you could do on the N64. It didn't improve the game at all, but it was funny as hell to us as kids. You know what I mean? It was just there for its own pleasure and for its own laugh.
Yeah, and these days you would be hard pressed to find games that have these. If a game has any cheats at all, it's going to be like a code, like the Konami code, like a series of button presses. But having an actual screen where it will let you type in the code, that's new. Or not new. It's the exact opposite of what I just said. It's retro. The way that you got these were one of three options. You could beat the game, and at the conclusion of the credits, it will randomly give you one. It'll just tell you one of them. You could do it with magazines, like I said, or word of mouth, because the internet wasn't really a thing back in this time. Not for most people, not really. And those who had it, certainly it wasn't as robust as it is today. So all of this was word of mouth. You would hear rumors at school, hey, Mew is behind the truck. Hey, if you enter this code, you can play as Spider-Man. Hey, do this, do that. And it was just a really magical time. I'm not saying that I wish it was still that way, but it's sweet to think about.
Rick, you just like opened up a whole thing for me, and now I'm going to cry on air. No, it's that really was what it was. As long as your friends had the same game systems and games as you, because I had neighbors across the street who had very different games than what I had, and I had a friend down the street who had a PlayStation. I was the N64 person, he was the PlayStation person. So, we would support each other in our endeavors. But yeah, no, I remember coming to elementary school and, talking with my friends and us sharing like what happened in our games recently. And like, and I entered this code and Mickey appeared. You know what I mean? It was a good time.
Yeah. It's, man, I don't know. The older I get, the more like special these retro games become. I'm not necessarily saying that I prefer them to current titles, but yeah, it's just different. It's a different thing. And maybe part of it is that desire to see everything through rose-colored glasses that you get as you grow older. And, John Hodgman famously has said nostalgia is a toxic impulse. I don't disagree with that, but I there's nothing wrong with sort of waxing poetic about remembering the games of our childhood.
Well, and at the same time, Rick, we live in an era where, dare I say, a lot of video games are factory farmed. Like, there are games that are put out before they're actually finished. There are games that are put out that are just, aimless. There are games that are put out that have like a weak story or have weak controls or whatever. I mean, it's something that's been happening in Hollywood, to be honest. Something that the pandemic has done is that people are suddenly starting to care about what they put out again. They're starting to say, okay, what can we do that's cinematic and beautiful? And that's what we had in video games back then. And I think that in, a lot of games from like, dare I say 2008 on, start to get into this formula of, this sells. Oh, this makes money. Oh, people like this, so we can't take any more risks.
I think a big part of it is once companies realized that they could pump out games that weren't ready and fix them with patches after the fact, or like Bethesda, have the community just do mods and then say, okay, do that. I think once companies realized that that was okay and they could keep their schedule that they wanted to make as much money as they damn well pleased, and who cares if the workers are overworked, I think that's what largely did it. Because games back in this time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were simpler, so they did get pushed out quicker. And that's not to say there wasn't crunch in the process, because notably Chrono Cross, or is it Chrono Trigger? Whichever one came. Is it Chrono Trigger?
I'm not sure. Let me look it up.
Whichever one came first. I think it's Chrono Trigger. That was notoriously, there was a lot of crunch there. But yeah, like now companies can just put out whatever they want, and it can be half finished or broken or just in desperate need of patches. Pretty much anything by Bethesda, Cyberpunk 2077, Nick All-Stars Brawl, all of these games came out just really not finished and rough around the edges, and it's fine because they just patch it and go. But, I don't know. I am more than happy to wait as long as it takes for a game to get made, if it means, one, it's up to the studio standards, and two, the workers weren't abused making the game.
I forget who it was at Nintendo who said a bad game is a bad game forever. Or rather, I think a good game is a good game forever, meaning that, like, its reputation, the amount of respect it receives, is on the line from the second that it is put in the hands of the public, which is true of, like, compositions, as you and I very well know. You don't generally go back and edit something to the umpteenth degree, But no, these games, they took some time to make. They could put them out, but they made sure that they were airtight, because you don't get many redos except in the case of like things like Ocarina of Time, when you accidentally use inappropriate music in the Fire Temple, and it's a cultural faux pas. But we can save that for an Ocarina of Time episode.
Yeah, just to sort of tidy up the in-game things, we didn't talk about the characters. Do you want to talk about those?
Oh, we should absolutely talk about the characters.
So I kind of went ahead and mentioned that my go-to character was Conker. Who was your go-to character?
As a child, it was Timber. Through my teens, it was Tip Tup and Pipsy. And then in adulthood, it was Timber again.
All right. Interesting. So there are a total of 10 characters, 8 of them from the start, 2 that you can unlock, as well as 5 bosses. The standard characters are Diddy Kong, Tip Tup the Turtle, Pipsy the Mouse, Bumper the Gopher?
Badger.
Bumper the Badger. Oh, of course. Bumper the Badger. Conker the Squirrel. Timber the Tiger, who inexplicably is wearing a police cap, it looks like.
That's a rare cap, actually, because product placement?
Sure. Okay. Well, he's wearing a little hat. He's a good guy. He's a stylish man. Banjo the bear, and then Crunch the crocodile. Those are the 8 that you can get right off the bat.
And there are 2 other characters that you can unlock. We won't dive into them too terribly much at this time anyway, because they're unlockables. And they are Drumstick the Rooster, and TT the Stopwatch. That is T.T. Those are the playable characters, though 2 of them are really NPCs for the majority of the game, speaking candidly.
Right. And then there are 5 bosses. Tricky the Triceratops, Bluey the Walrus, Bubbler the Octopus. Yeah, Octopus.
Yes.
Smokey the Dragon, and then, of course, Wizpig. Interesting enough, these bosses have voice acting, and it is bizarre.
You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, the first boss that you're going to get to is Tricky the Triceratops, and he sounds like they put a construction worker in to come and record his lines, like on a bad microphone.
He kind of sounds like, I'm walking here. Like he has that kind of sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then Bluey, he sounds like an old Southern gentleman that they recruited.
Bluey sounds like someone I knew once, but I'm not going to name them on the air. May they rest in peace. Then you've got Bubbler, who really just sounds like somebody took Bluey's vocals and threw it into a blender.
Yeah, it's got that after effect that makes it sound like they're underwater. Pretty much their whole thing. And then Smokey is just kind of drawn out, like a drawn out, excellent kind of old guy. And then Wizpig is Wizpig.
Sounds like a Wizpig to me.
Yeah, he's always calling you worms and screaming about how you'll never beat him.
Yeah. He keeps talking about how he's going to marry everybody that you've ever loved. It's really weird. Okay, the last part wasn't true. He never says that.
Well, he would be an eligible bachelor. He's a hog that's wearing like what looks like a one-piece swimsuit plus a belt and a cape.
Yeah, he kind of has a little bit of like a mod 60s, 70s look to him. Except he walks on his cloven hooves, which look like they were dipped in gold.
We should say, too, Wizpig is a portmanteau of wizard and pig, just in case anybody wasn't sure.
Yes.
And Conker's voice actor, I don't know if it was for this game or for the Conker games, was on record as saying behind the scenes they would call him Jizzpig.
That's unbelievable.
Which is just the filthiest thing you could call somebody, I think, or refer to yourself as.
Well, look at what the Conker series turned into, you know?
I'm a real Jizzpig.
The shoe fits with the Conker games. It's worth mentioning that these bosses aren't necessarily bad people, at least the first 4 aren't. Tricky, Bluey, Bubbler, and Smokey, which felt really strange to say quickly and casually, have all more or less been brainwashed, have been compromised by the Wizpig.
Right. And each of these, obviously this is another difference from Mario Kart 64 insofar as this game has bosses. The way these boss battles work is it's basically just a race with the boss themselves. But man, the level of difficulty is just ramped up by a factor of 5.
Yeah, they are appropriate final bosses, in my humble opinion, because there's nothing that pisses me off more in a game than a final boss that is too easy. These guys were not.
No. As we alluded to before, basically, if you don't play the track perfectly, you're not going to win. Because Tricky, for example, he's the first one. He is as fast as you are. It's like you're not faster than him. So if you miss one too many zippers, or if you get hit by one too many boulders or trees, you're done. You have to restart. You're just wasting 2 minutes at that point. Same thing can be said with Smokey. I think you're about as fast as Smokey. If you get hit by his fireballs, that's it. I mean, you basically have to start over. And then, of course, Wizpig. Ben, you've mentioned Wizpig on the show more than I bet people would think. Do you want to talk about Wizpig's race?
Which one? You know what I mean? There are a couple races against the Wizpig. So to kind of go back to what I started with this game, talking about defeating Wizpig in my adulthood, and actually, just earlier today, I defeated the final incarnation of Wizpig for the first time. So there you go. But the first time that I raced Wizpig was in a trailer working security for gas wells in southwestern Pennsylvania. We were able to, bring our games along, and I brought my games and a television, and that's when I beat Wizpig, and it took me probably the entirety of the 8-hour shift to beat him, because Rick, as you've said, as I've said, if you miss one thing, just restart the race, basically. He's way too fast. You need to have the exact right items at the exact right time, which is not the case with all of the bosses necessarily. But in the final Wizpig race, there are a number of other elements in the course that make him exceedingly difficult to overtake. Yeah, just good final bosses, fair. And the races themselves are also pretty difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, Wizpig is much faster than you. So
Yes.
you'll start at the same time as him and he just takes off. So you really have to use those rockets, use those zippers and rocket boosts to beat Wizpig. And that's just the first one on land. The second one, you're facing him on a rocket and things get even more complicated. But you mentioned a few minutes ago, Ben, that the bosses aren't bad people. They're just sort of brainwashed. That leads us into the story. Did you want to take a head on that?
I would be happy to do so. And I was just about to say, they're not bad people. They're just brainwashed, like a lot of citizens. That's a joke. That's a joke. But always hold yourself accountable.
Oh, are we going to get political?
No.
Want to talk about Joe Rogan?
Rick, if you would like to talk about Joe Rogan.
I cannot think of anybody I would like to talk about less than Joe Rogan.
Even talking about him gives him too much power. It does.
Yeah, he's a real jizzpig himself.
And that's the episode. Thanks for listening. No, the story is extremely brief, and as Rick mentioned earlier, it is found in the instruction manual. Basically, Diddy is at his tree house, and he gets a letter, and it says help, and this letter is from Timber. Ooh, I want to keep calling Timber the wolf, but it's Timber the tiger, for goodness sake. I actually made a Pinewood Derby car for Boy Scouts when I was little around Timber.
Oh man, this is just a nostalgia bath of an episode. Pinewood Derby was my jam as a kid.
Oh, I was terrible at it, and I was heartbroken when my car didn't do well, but it was absolutely Timber the tiger themed.
We had this, I don't know how your troop did things. My troop was pretty fast and loose with a lot of things, which is why I never continued past Weeblo. But we had this circuit where once you were eliminated from the standard race, you could go into an anything goes category, and this took place like a week later. So like I would be duct taping D batteries to my car. We like crafted with the help of my pap an aluminum frame, like a metal frame. Don't get me wrong, I still lost because other folks had like better ideas, or I should say their dads and their uncles had better ideas because we were stupid children. In many ways, it was the adult supervision doing the racing in these, but it was real wild, dude. Like weight limits were thrown away, like the number of things you could put on your car just thrown away.
They were able to be flammable.
I mean, isn't Pinewood already pretty flammable?
It is. I guess I rather should have said that they were allowed to be set on fire as they raced down the track.
Yeah. The opponents can't win if there's no track to race on because your car's on fire, baby.
Or there's just a pile of ash at the end of the course, and you're like, well, see, my car was faster, and you can't prove it, but I can because it's already over the finish line, even if it's ash. So we're going to go back to the story. But Timber is asking for help. As his parents, if I'm not mistaken, his parents are on holiday and leave Timber in charge of the entire island. That is Timber's island. That's where this game takes place. So Timber and his friends are organizing this race, but Wizpig, the intergalactic pig wizard, arrives and attempts to take it over after taking over his own planet's tracks. Brainwashes the guardians of each of those 4 dimensions, and the only way to bring peace is to race, to get the guardians, back in a better place, and to eventually defeat Wizpig, which you can do on Timber's Island and in Future Funland, which I'm thinking is Wizpig's world. I to be honest, that's, you defeat Wizpig, and that's, I don't know. Rick, do you want to add anything to the story here, pal?
It's one of those games, and again, this was a theme of the 90s, I think, and early 2000s, where the story really took a back seat, if you'll pardon that pun, to the gameplay. Like, this game is all about the gameplay. Like, these days, the story is like you're literally playing through World War II, or like an allegory for World War II, or there's a horrific zombie outbreak and you are the sole survivor and you're trying to evade these factions. There is a horrific hog that is also a wizard, and he says, "I'm taking you all captive unless you beat me in a race." Like, that is so 90s.
It is like it's like soft world building at its best and at its worst, because it's like alien pig.
But it's awesome. Like the story, the gameplay is so good that the story doesn't really matter. Like, it's okay for the story to be a vehicle for the gameplay, if, again, you'll pardon another pun, because it works. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
To mention another big flavor of the 90s, Tony Hawk. Don't think too much about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater the First. Don't you dare, because you'll sit there and go, wait, how did they gain access to all these places? Nope. Don't think about it. Just accept that Tony Hawk and all of his skateboarding friends have literally gained access to all of these public locations that they're not supposed to be in. That's the fun, is that they've broken just the right number of rules that imagination has no limits.
Yeah, and then they did try to put in like a story with Underground, and things just got, it just wasn't the same after that.
Doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it. So we went back to, I forget if this was on this podcast or another one, where we were talking about, everything is in service to the piece. This game, adding in like a convoluted story or a longer story, would not be in service to what this finished work is. Right? And they knew that. Or, maybe they just wanted to put a game out. But who's to say? I don't know. But it doesn't need anything more complicated than race Wizpig,
I think it really exists for its own pleasure. I think that people saw the great success of Mario Kart 64, and I think that there was this idea of let's put out this, joyful, fun, good triumphs over evil. I mean, Wizpig is just bad. It's not like there's like some sort of backstory to Wizpig, like Wizpig didn't used to be this way. Like it's not episode 2 of Star Wars, everybody. He's just a bad pig from space.
Who do you think they would cast to play young Wizpig? Like, as he's going through his Joker moments, per se.
Probably Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Intergalactic space pigs.
I was thinking like young Wizpig, like depending on how comedic they wanted it to be. I bet Jason Alexander would be, or Wayne Knight. Like if we're thinking of Seinfeld, Newman would be a good young Wizpig.
Let's just make it Seth Rogen. Trying to laugh with an evil laugh. He just turned his frown upside down and hope for the best.
I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent with this, but I saw this amazing TikTok of Smash 64 or Smash Ultimate where Donkey Kong just runs up to somebody, and you know how Donkey Kong has the cargo grab where he puts you on his back and then you can run with Donkey Kong? It was Donkey Kong grabbed like Mario, put him on his back, and as he ran away, somebody overdubbed Seth Rogen just going,
I want to see this.
So terrific. Yeah, there was, I read a comment on a Reddit thread where somebody went like, they did this big paragraph with how like, at the end when you beat Wizpig, the cliffhanger is you hear Wizpig laughing, and like that was supposed to be his brother Wiz Hog, and there was supposed to be a sequel. What? And they did this big thing, and at the end of it, they were like, "Yeah, I'm just kidding. This is all bullshit." And I was like, "Can you imagine though? Like Wiz Hog's revenge? First of all, what a title."
Yeah, no, I mean Wiz Hog. That's a little bit harder of a sell. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I can't believe it's not butter versus like, is it butter? You know what I mean? Like, don't try to make another one.
It's not butter! Exclamation point.
Exactly. But honestly, that's kind of the story. Another NPC worth mentioning is a blue elephant named Taj the Genie. Little bit of appropriation here with Taj the Genie.
Yeah, it felt a little like it's not outright gross, but when he first came up, especially with the music that's playing, I got a little squirmy.
Yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable in this day and age. I mean, I'm not saying that it was just okay that they did this in 1997, but with where we are now, it has not aged tremendously well. But Taj the Genie is somebody who helps you go where you need to go. and Taj will challenge you to races, and he gives you balloons if you win, because that's what you're doing in this entire game throughout the story, is you're collecting balloons and then eventually these silver coins, and that's how you advance the story and eventually get yourself to race Wizpig in both places. There are trophy races to participate in our 4 main areas of Dino Domain, Snowflake Mountain, Sherbet Island, and Dragon Forest. And then there are balloon and silver coin races in Future Funland as well.
Yeah, and that's really all as far as story and gameplay goes. I mean, I don't want to say there's not a lot here because that's not exactly the right sentiment, but it doesn't have a lot of fluff. Like, it's game, This is of the era where you booted up your cartridge and you just played. Like, there's no bullshit here. You just play the game.
And there's something refreshing about that. And the fact that it takes a certain amount of rehearsal to get it down, I don't know, I find it rather meditative and satisfying whenever you win, because you know that you've earned it. Like, I know I keep mentioning the second Spyro game, but like that one boss fight, well, I forget what his name even was. The one dragon that's like next to impossible to beat, or is a dinosaur.
Gulp?
Yes. That's not even fun.
Yeah, that was super frustrating.
It just was unreasonable. Period. This game is difficult, but it is not impossible. And I think that's what I enjoyed about this game so much. Rick, what did you think of the music in this game?
Oh, let's talk about the music.
David Wise is the person who composed the music. He did a number of stuff throughout the 90s and some stuff in the later aughts, as late as it can be, I guess. He did Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Land, Diddy Kong Racing, Star Fox Adventures, It's Mr. Pants, whatever that is, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Yeah, he did some interesting stuff here. The music to Yooka-Laylee, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, Battletoads 2020. But those are just what he's done. He obviously also did Diddy Kong Racing, and I want to hear what Rick thought of the music in this game.
It's fantastic. It's stupendous. I could not think of any other soundtrack or composer or vibe or instrumentation that would fit this better. Like, it is Diddy Kong Racing. It is so good.
You like all that jazz organ?
There's some of that in there. So there are, I mean, not every single track is going to sound the same. There are some that bleed together, but how would you like generalize how this soundtrack sounds? Like, how would you describe it to somebody that's never heard it?
In a shirty music school way, or in layman's terms?
A little column A, little column B.
The music follows appropriate patterns, and it's stylized with a lot of fun, creativity, and it is just, I wouldn't call it impressionistic per se, but it's very, and I wouldn't say atmospheric, because it's not about the atmosphere. It's still very much driving, energetic music, but the instrumentations, they use those extremely well in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't put impressionistic anywhere near this. This is all about the groove, the beat,
yeah,
the vibe. But in a different way than Spyro. Like, Spyro is a more laid back kind of vibe. Like, it's in the pocket and you're just going along. This feels like it's about the vibe and the beat, and it's pushing you forward. Like, it's very energetic. It's on the toes rather than on the heels. You know what I mean?
I do. And whenever I say impressionistic, I don't mean impressionistic as much as I mean, it's like there's one level that I'll just name right now in passing. It is in the Dragon Forest area, and I think it's Boulder Canyon. Yes, Boulder Canyon has a couple of different incarnations as you're going through it on your hovercraft. But the music, the instrumentation changes. Like whenever you're like going through like the river and on the river, it's like fun. And it's got like a really dirty Barry sax line and it is grooving. And then whenever you get into the castle, it kind of has this like faux Renaissance kind of like harpsichord sounding instrumentation. And then whenever you get into the sewers, there's this string with like this, kind of, bass clarinet sort of sounding melody that gets a little bit spooky. That's what I guess I mean. It's really just about what they do with the characterization of the instruments and stuff.
Sure. Did any tracks stand out to you as favorites of yours?
From the time that I was a child to now, 110%. Walrus Cove is one of them, but I also liked what happens in Whale Bay. Haunted Woods is a little too spooky for me. And Jungle Falls. What about you?
Walrus Cove was another one for me, just way up there. It's really good. I really like the character select screen and the title theme in general. I think those are really good. The lobby theme, I was fine on. Ancient Lake, like one of the very first ones that you do, is pretty good. I like that a lot. The bosses are good. I'm not huge on Wizpig's theme. I mean, it's fine. Taj's theme, yeah. Leave that one out. Yeah, we should also mention there are a lot of tracks on this. You can find the whole thing on YouTube. There are 42 total tracks in the game, so quite a bit. All of them, well, some of them are short snippets, like if you're losing against a boss or if you're losing against Wizpig in particular. Some of them are like 2 minutes long. Others are upwards of 3 to 4 minutes. So it really depends, and there's a lot here. You're going to hear the soundtrack throughout this entire episode, but if it tickles you, and I'm sure it's going to, because it goes down all the right avenues, check it out. It's really good.
Unironically good, and it's super characterized, but it's not like tacky. And actually from like a music theory standpoint, it's kind of modal. And I like that. And there's a lot of lowered thirds, which adds that little bit of stankiness to it. Yeah.
It's modal in the same way that Spyro is, where you get a lot of those lowered thirds in conjunction with major thirds to give it that sort of bluesy feel. You get a lot of the minor seven. You get a lot of that.
A lot of that lowered seven stuff.
Yeah. A lot of that. I'm sure there's a flat 6, flat 7, 1 cadence in here somewhere, because that's just in everything. Yeah, it's good. I was listening to it earlier today while I was working, and it's just good.
It's good stuff. Rick, do you want to talk a little bit about development, release, reception stuff?
Oh, we haven't talked about that, have we?
No, the story's so damn short. We just can go right through it.
Yeah, I'll start by giving just a few little numbers here. It was released globally in November of 1997. It came to the States on the 24th, but was otherwise in Japan on the 21st. And it's showing another flag here, but I'm not going to pretend like I know that flag, because I am an uncultured citizen of the United States of God. Sorry. No, but it was released in 1997 on the Nintendo 64, developed and published by Rareware.
We give thanks for Rare, who also, I think, brought about the Conquer series and brought about the Banjo-Kazooie series. Basically, any of those games that had like really nice, dry British humor, while also saturated with fun, and they were like extremely difficult. Wasn't Donkey Kong technically a Rare product as well?
Oh yeah. Donkey Kong 64 is, and that's part of why we're likely not going to see a remaster, because the rights to that got all sorts of split up, which is a shame. I would love to do Donkey Kong 64 on the show.
We should sometime. Yeah.
Unironically, I would love to do that, because I never had an N64 as a kid, and that was the one that I always wanted to play, because you got to be all the different Kongs. I always really liked Lanky Kong and Chunky Kong, and also the DK rap is just iconic.
Oh, something I feel like should be mentioned. from a developmental standpoint, and this kind of goes back to, it's kind of opinion blended with fact. Visually, I find it much more impressive than Mario Kart with the 3D like avatars that you play as. I mean, there's no selling you on something being 3D when it's actually like a faux 2D. Like these characters are actually 3D.
Yeah, I think visually too, the color palette on this stands out with Mario Kart. Mario Kart's maybe a little bit brighter, but this has more diversity with its color palette, I think. I don't know. And I think the characters are just more interesting in a way.
I would agree. And the way that they, in the opening credits to the game, they show you each of the characters with their names and like you hear the instrumentation and you have an idea of who they are, like what their personalities are that you otherwise wouldn't get. And I think that's really wonderful. The game received a lot of great reviews upon its coming out. It scores generally pretty high in the 8s and 9s. There are a couple of lower ones like by GameSpot, but otherwise it's been ranking pretty high for a long time. It's stood the test of time. And something, Rick, that you mentioned a couple of times. I found an article on Game Rant that says a leaker claims Diddy Kong Racing and more rare games are coming to the Switch Online.
Yeah, I had seen that. I think I saw that same article. I hope that's true. I mean, I don't have the Switch Online N64 pack because IMO right now, it's too expensive, and for the quality of the ports, it's just not worth it because there are so many bugs. But if Diddy Kong were to come over, and Donkey Kong 64 too, that would be a really big persuader for me to jump in.
Yeah, that's fair.
2 sequels for the game were planned, but they were ultimately canceled, which is a real shame. And one other thing just to mention was it sold 4.5 million copies upon release, and at the time it got a Guinness World Record nod for being the fastest selling game of all time, with selling 800,000 copies before Christmas.
Good God.
So 800,000 copies within under a month.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane. And then it went on to become a Player's Choice title because, of course it did. And it's a shame that those sequels didn't happen because, the sequel to Mario Kart 64 was Double Dash, right?
Double Dash comes after. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, Double Dash is still the best Mario Kart game out there. I mean, Mario Kart 8 is polished, but Double Dash is just hard to beat. And I wonder what a Diddy Kong Racing game on GameCube would have been like.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would have been extremely successful, but that's not to say that they couldn't make one that could be revolutionary for the Switch. But, they need to get them people who worked at Rare back on board and have them make something that isn't quite ukulele, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
I think that's all in terms of development. Did we miss anything? You mentioned that it got generally favorable reviews.
Yeah, I mean, it did well. There's a lot of, 4.5s out of 5. What is that? EGM calling it the racing game of the year in 1997, Editor's Choice Awards. I mean, it's a good game. It doesn't get enough attention. And when you mention it to people, sometimes they like scoff or laugh and be like, what is that? And it's like, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's a hell of a game. And it's not one that I think anyone should really criticize until they've actually played it. Because I'm sure that if you said to a number of people, Diddy Kong Racing is better than Mario Kart, they would gasp, they would disown you, they would hit you, they would throw their recycling at you.
I'm not so sure. I did a quick Google search before we recorded this, and that seems to be the consensus, as most people do think Diddy Kong is a better game than 64. Actually, the YouTube channel The Completionist recently did a Diddy Kong Racing video where he enthusiastically mentions how much better it is than 64. The trouble is that Mario Kart went on to become as successful as it is. So I think a lot of folks have just forgotten about Diddy Kong Racing. And in 2021, the controls are bad. I mean, there's no getting around it. As somebody that played this for the first time in November of 2021, the controls are bad. They're not good.
They take a lot of figuring out, and even when you do figure them out, they are SOBs. Because I was trying to do like some brake drifting against Wizpig earlier today, and there was a 15% chance I was going to get it right. You know what I mean? No, but Rick, that's kind of what I'm alluding to, is the fact that this game has made such an impression in the gaming world that, you know, people won't necessarily like light couches on fire if you say that it's better than Mario Kart. But people will be like, what are you talking about? And it's like, no, compare this game to Mario Kart 64 and tell me, look me in the eye, kiss me on the forehead and say Mario Kart 64 is the better game. I'm sorry, I don't think it is. And it's not to say that I don't recognize what it is. And I'm not here to talk shit on Mario Kart 64. I'm just saying, you know. Now, Rick, there's something I wanted to do with you. I wanted to do a speed dating with you on the levels of this game, because there are a lot of really great fun levels in this game. And I just thought we'd go area by area. And on a scale of 1 to 5, I want to know what you thought. Because, you know, there's just a lot of quick levels. Now, before I do this, did you do the challenge levels as well?
The challenge levels being the silver coin levels?
Like like Fire Mountain, Icicle Pyramid, like all of the games that happen within the game.
Oh, I got you. I did not. I'll be honest, I did not do that. I watched playthroughs on YouTube. I just played through the vanilla versions of each track.
Well, and that gives you the general feel of the game, so that's what's most important. So I'll just go through the races and the boss races, and I just want to hear what you think 1 to 5 of each of these. So first level we play Ancient Lake.
That's like a solid 3. It's a good introduction.
That's fair. I was going to say 3 or 4. Fossil Canyon.
I might bump that down to a 2 just because it's, you know, a little too similar to Ancient Lake.
What about Jungle Falls?
We'll go back to a 3 for that one.
What about our first time in an airplane, Hot Top Volcano?
I will say that's a 4. That's a pretty cool moment.
You liked that.
I did like that one.
That one's an SOB for me. It's real tricky.
It is tricky, but it's so cool to be flying an airplane through a volcano. Like that's just super cool to me.
You could say it's baptism by fire. So
now can I pull an Uno reversal on you and ask you about the boss? What did you 1 to 5 for the boss?
This boss, I would give a 3. Just stacking up against everyone else. I mean, I could sit here and say he's really like a 4 for me, but like compared to some of the later races, I'd put him at a 3. Like I'd maybe a 4, but there are some that are less. What about you?
So I was going the opposite. Like I was sitting at a 1.5 or a 2
because tell me what puts him low.
The track is just uninspired. It's just a left turn the whole time.
It's uninspired, but it's definitely spiraled.
Yeah, uninspired, but spiraled.
Yes.
Yeah, there's somewhere out there's like a ninth grader that's like, oh yeah, that's good. It's that.
Or a dad.
It's like, yes. It feels like, I swear, I played this boss battle 5 times. I swear the boulders are homing onto you. They track you. I swear they do. That's annoying. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing to it. I mean, you're turning left. You go as fast as the boss, so you just either shoot him or boost past him, and you know, it's just not fun. It's fine.
You're not wrong. I mean, from an inspiration standpoint, this level leaves a lot to be desired. So you're spot on there. Let's move to the Snowflake Mountain levels. Everfrost Peak.
Yeah, 4. 4.
I think it's a great one to fly. Walrus Cove.
5.
It's my 5-2, baby. Snowball Valley.
I don't know why. I'm giving this one a 5 too. I liked this one.
Really? This is a 3 for me, but it's okay. Frosty Village.
That's a 4.
I track with you there. And Bluey the Walrus.
See, next to Wizpig, this might be my favorite boss, which is weird because it's my least favorite vehicle. Because you're fighting Bluey on the hovercraft, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just because like it makes sense. Like he's a walrus, so this whole thing is like sliding down an ice mountain.
I never considered that. Yeah.
Good music. Like there's no laps. You just either get there first or you don't. Yeah, I don't know. 3.5, maybe 4.
Yeah, see, for me, he was a lot easier than the Triceratops.
Oh, he's definitely easier. He's slower than you.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. He is slower. What are so after the Hot Top volcano, or not Hot Top, listen to me. After Triceratops, the bosses start to have more, what do you call it? They leave stuff in their wake to trip you up. I don't know why I'm completely blanking on the word.
Projectiles?
Sure, we can
Obstacles?
call it projectiles. Yeah, sure. Potato. What was Bluey's? Because I remember the octopus leaves behind those spiky things, and Smokey shoots his fireballs.
I don't know that at the risk of sounding arrogant, I've never been behind Bluey.
That's fair. Maybe he doesn't have them because I don't remember them.
He's got them teeth.
He does have them teeth.
The teeths. So let's Sherbet Island. How do you feel about Whale Bay?
I don't know, like 3. These were all kind of 3 for me.
That's pretty good, seeing as like 2 of them were hovercraft. I liked Whale Bay. I'd say it was a 4 for me. Crescent Island.
I might also give that a 3. I don't know.
Pirate Lagoon.
Oh, Pirate Lagoon. Maybe a 4 for Pirate Lagoon.
It's got 4. It's spicy. Treasure Caves.
I think that one's also a 4 if I'm remembering it correctly. Like I said, for me, a lot of these do kind of roll together.
That's fair. How about Bubbler, though? Bubbler the octopus.
I didn't like this one. This was like a 2.5 for me.
Yeah, he's probably a 2 for me.
I just don't like controlling the hovercraft. I'm really bad at it. And he leaves behind those little spiky boys that you can hit, and that really messes you up. You can, in this one, like, go over the branches to, like, do little sweet jumps and stuff.
If you can jump, because I was bad at it.
Yeah, I'm not good at it either. Yeah, solid 2.5.
That's fair. So let's move to Dragon Forest, Windmill Plains.
Windmill Plains. Windmill Plains. I think this one was a 4 for me, maybe.
For me, it's a little bit too Wonder Bread white, so I'd give it like a 2.5. But that's just me. Greenwood Village.
That's like a 3.
Same. I'm in the same boat as you, baby. How about Boulder Canyon?
I forgot all about this one, so I guess I'm going to say it too.
See, I love this one because that berry sax takes the lead. Haunted Woods.
I did like Haunted Woods. I'm going to give that one a 4.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 18 out of 5 for the 18 Cowboys at Ram Ranch. So the
you could see in Haunted Woods, you could see ghosts that look like Wizpig.
Yeah, it's true. Even though Wizpig's alive.
Maybe it's like his fallen Wizhog brethren.
Yes. I wonder how many were in the litter. How about Smokey?
Maybe that's why Wizpig is so antagonistic. He was the runt of the litter.
And he's the only one who apparently lived. Oh, wait.
Now he's real hogged off now.
Oh, my gosh. What a swine. I don't know. How about Smokey the Dragon?
I liked this one. This one is a 5, not a 5. Wizpig is a 5, a 4 for me.
Smokey the Dragon is a 4 for me too. He was difficult, but not aggravatingly difficult.
I really didn't really use the tight turning on the plane very much because I just didn't figure it out, to be honest. And you kind of have to for this one.
Yes, you do. You have to.
You can get away with it not using it in the other ones, but for Smokey, you've got to be tight turning.
Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. How you feel about that Wizpig?
So I'll be completely candid and say that I did not fight Wizpig the second time. I got the amulet and then fought him the first time. So actually, Future Funland for me, I just kind of saw all of that on YouTube. But Wizpig is a 5 just because of how challenging he is. You really have to plan the race. It's not like, you can just go with a hope and a prayer. You've got to hit every zipper. You've got to take advantage of the items. There's a trick where if you get in front of him, he can like kick you and kick you forward, but he can also trample you if he gets behind you too. So it's a 5. It's challenging.
The Wizpig kicketh, the Wizpig steppeth upon. The final Wizpig Strikes Back, beating it for the first time today. That for me is also a 5. They're both 5, but both Wizpig races. Super challenging. Items literally where you have to use them basically in the space race. Like there's a shield and it's right before you go through a room of lasers, which if you don't pick up that shield, you're toast. Well-crafted levels, I think, all around.
And although I didn't play them, Space Dust Alley and Dark Moon Caverns, I don't know if it's just because of the color palette. Like up until now, we've had a tropical vibe, sometimes greenery. These are all like Rainbow Road. There's like yellows and purples and reds and blues. I really like both of those. Star City and Spaceport Alpha, they're good. They're fine, but like those first two, really nice change of pace.
Those two, I mean, you've got your magentas, you've got your marigolds, you've got your electric blues in those levels. They kind of go a little bit off the beaten path, whereas Spaceport Alpha and Star City are a little bit more fundamental primary colors. Not that they don't have some fun, but those first two, yeah, Rick, they are funky.
There's also, I forget which one it is, but one of them has Wizpig's ship shooting at you as you're driving, which is kind of neat.
I think that's Dark Moon Caverns, but Spaceport Alpha also has lasers shooting at you, so IDK LOL. It's worth mentioning that at the end there is Adventure 2 mode.
Yes.
Which is Adventure 1, only the balloons are silver, the tracks are mirrored, and the coins are in different locations. Yeah, it's unlocked by defeating Wizpig at Future Funland in Adventure mode.
Yep. Pretty similar to how the Mario Kart series does their mirrored versions.
Precisely.
Which never sounds difficult, but always is.
Yeah. No, it always is. And something to be said for muscle memory and all that jazz. There are trophy races as well, and if you do well enough in those and in time trials and everything, you can get TT, the stopwatch, and honestly, there are not really many more stones to turn over regarding this game, Richard.
That's true. It's how long would you say it took you to beat this?
It depends on the level of urgency with which I'm playing it, and it depends on how many times I need to press the restart button in a race. Organically, see, nowadays it's different, right? Because I'm an adult, so I can't just say it like would take me 20 to 40 hours.
Is that really how long this game took you?
I mean, when you think about the fact that I started it when I was 5 and didn't beat it until I was 21. I don't know. I don't know how long I would say it takes. It can take a long time depending on how rehearsed you are in the races. What would you say? I'm really bad at time estimations.
I mean, I am too, to be fair. I think, getting through each one and beating the first Wizpig took me, I don't know, I want to say somewhere around 5.5 hours. Like, it's not long. And that's a strength of this game, because any shorter, and, I'm not so sure, but any longer, the game shows you its hand by the time you get to Wizpig. Or Wizpig the second, I should say. Any more, I don't know, would have felt like too much. Like if they would have added a fifth track onto each world, maybe a bit too much.
I agree with you. I mean, there are an extra level. There is an extra level in each world, in each of the areas, but they aren't races necessarily. They are challenges, and I think that's what breaks it up. Because I think if it would have been a fifth race, other than the boss of the main races, I think it would just become exhausting.
Yeah. So the short length, or comparatively short length, really works for this.
Yeah, it's sort of like a small plates dish. Like, wow, this little flank steak is with salsa verde is just right. This little bite. What's the next thing on the menu? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That sounds delicious, to be honest.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah. So as somebody coming to this for the first time in 2021, I really liked it. I think there's a lot here. It is such a shame that this didn't get expanded upon on the GameCube, because especially the GameCube, like, the GameCube in a lot of ways didn't do so well as a console, but a lot of really great games came out on that system. We already mentioned Double Dash, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Metroid Prime. Like, so many good games came out, and I don't know, like another Diddy Kong Racing. It's a shame we never got it.
And it would have fit the personality of the GameCube remarkably well. It's so quirky and so fun.
And, the two-player mode in this, that's one thing that Mario Kart 64 does have on this, is that the multiplayer is better in Mario Kart 64. In this one, I think you have to use a code to unlock it. And then even still, it's just two players racing. Thinking about the GameCube having 4 ports and how they did Mario Kart Double Dash, I just think there's so much untapped potential in this series. Can you call it a series if it's only one game?
I don't know. I mean,
IP.
It did come out on the DS, so I
think that was just a remake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and they aren't like adjustments that would break the integrity of the game. It's just like, add a couple places for multiplayer. The one thing that always baffled me about Mario Kart was the fact that multiplayer music wouldn't play. That always bothered me.
Like in the races?
Yes, unless I'm mistaken, but Victoria and I were just doing Virtual Console, and there was zero music in any of the multiplayer races.
I'm inclined to take your word. I mean, I've never played 64 multiplayer. I've played Double Dash multiplayer and everything after that. There definitely was music in those. Mm-hmm. But 64, yeah, I've never played multiplayer. Are you talking about the races or the battles?
I'm talking about the races between you and your friends, like multiplayer. Like Victoria and I were just playing on the Virtual Console, and yeah, I don't remember there being music at like any of the levels, because usually that stuff kind of smacks me in the eardrum. You know what I mean?
It seems like such an oversight, especially for Mario Kart. Like, the music's good.
It is. And I think that's why I still like this one more for multiplayer. But at the same time, the party nature of Mario Kart and just sheer popularity kind of catapults it in that category.
Yeah, it is tough to beat the fun aspect of Mario Kart's RNG and that whole business, like in a party setting. It's tough to top that. I might say Mario Kart is the better game if you're with friends.
Yeah. Though I just love the strategy of this one. But with friends, oh yeah.
Oh, but if you're sitting down in your big boy chair, you put on your big boy pants, you've just eaten a sloppy steak, they can't stop you, and you're ready to go, Diddy Kong all day.
Now this is pod racing.
Have you gotten that far and I think you should leave?
I think I probably did. It's been so long since I've watched it that I don't know when that skit was.
That's fair.
Well, we did it, Rick. I'd say we solved Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah. A definite recommend from me.
I'd say give this the old poke if you haven't, and report back to us by a number of means. Let us know what you think, and you can let us know what you think How, Rick? How can they let us know?
Well, there are a couple of ways. If you just want to talk at us, you can find us on Instagram at pixelprojectradio podcast. There is also the email, the electronic mail that became popular in the 90s, which is not so popular today, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't matter. At pixelprojectradio@gmail.com.
And we have a Twitter?
Yeah, we have a Twitter. We don't really
use
use it. To be perfectly honest, we don't. It just hasn't found a platform. I don't know why.
No. But we have a Discord that I am not as active on as I would like to be, but someday, perhaps after Advent, I can be.
It is fairly active. It's a lot of fun. We talk about the topic of the past few days has been Pokemon. Been talking all about that. I don't have Let's Go Pikachu, so somebody's going to help me get a Mew, I think, because Mew is my favorite poke of all time. It's been a lot of fun. We also encourage you to give us ratings and reviews. You can do this via Podcast Addict or Apple Podcasts, and I would like to read one today, Ben.
Read it. Read it. Let them know.
So this is from friend of the show, Dave Jackson. He is a host on a Top 3 podcast, as well as a video game podcast called Tales from the Backlog. Check those out. They're both very good shows. And you might hear a familiar voice on both of those. It's me. It's me. Yeah, it's me. But Dave says, awesome video games discussion. Really thoughtful, and I love their insights on game music. Plus, they're very handsome boys. And that's a 5-star review.
Why is handsome boys thrown into, I think it's all of the reviews so far have said that.
Well, I mean, let's not be glib here, Ben. I mean, have you looked at us lately?
I haven't looked at anything in weeks. No, but why? Why? It's yes, intelligent conversation, and they're very handsome boys. What? How does that improve the nature of our content?
I guess when you put it that way, it does kind of have the same stink on it as after a performance, somebody says wow, you look like you had fun up there, which is the worst possible thing anybody could ever say to you.
Is that good or is that? But see, I think if somebody says that you look like you had fun, that's not inherently bad, but at the same time, it would be nice to say I would be nice to hear I was really moved by your interpretation of this piece of music.
I have generally heard people interpret it looked like you had fun up there as a way to say something nice without lying,
without complimenting.
Yeah, you sound great. No, you look like you had fun. No, I think these are all earnest. I think we're handsome boys.
Well, we appreciate the support and the kind words, and as much fun as we have doing this, as much fun as it looks like we're having doing this, we do have fun. We appreciate you, our friends and listeners, giving your time, giving your ears, giving your opinions. Let us know, review us, please, and be in touch with us. We are humans, you are humans, and there's a reason that there are billions of us, and it's not for us to be alone. So reach out. We're here to talk.
If you're listening to this in real time in December of 2021, we're winding down the year. We're going to take a bit of a break before January. We've still got the game, The Unfinished Swan, coming out. We're going to do a little Q&A sort of deal before we end the year. And then we're coming back in January in a big way with the Smash Brothers episode, a retrospective on the entire series.
Rick, I've realized something. When we were originally supposed to record this episode, do you know when it was?
I do not.
It was late November.
Oh, it would have been perfect.
Again. Without any planning.
Without any planning.
What the hell?
And I think we decided on this shortly before they announced the leak of the Diddy Kong for the Switch, too.
I think you're right.
There's something in the water.
Hopefully it's not lead.
But that's what gives it that nice leady taste.
Ugh.
Well, as much as the audience wants to hear us riff for the next 30 minutes, I think we could probably cut it, right?
I think so. It's been fun to talk about this game with you, Rick.
It has been my sincere pleasure, as always. You know what they say. You stick me in a hover cart and send me down the river, and you've got one man, who is me, named Rick Firestone.
And if you throw me in an airplane upside down, and it goes poorly in a matter of seconds, you've got another man, and that is me, Ben Bugale.
Two broken men in trouble. That's all for this week. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. We're signing off now.